Art Moderne is going to be an outgrowth of Art Deco, to which it is particularly similar, and they're often mistaken. So what we're looking at in Art Moderne is a form that is going to be inspired by aerodynamic design. We're going to see streamlined architecture, emphasizing curved forms, long horizontal lines, and often nautical elements. Things like rounded windows mimicking portholes in ships. Of course, ships, aircraft are really going to be influential in this period. So it's going to mimic a lot of those ideas. And of course, this is the Hotel Metro in Milwaukee. You may have been there in the past. There's a cafe in there, but it mimics this Art Moderne style. Now, in terms of the architecture, what you often see is almost a streamlining effect. So you get the impression of a building that actually moves. It tends to be very horizontal. We see strips of windows, almost mimicking that prairie style. But then we have the nautical feel, for example, of this round window. We have the round details on this covering leading into the building. Things like shades over windows will become very important, but the whole thing is very, very horizontal. And this style will be used for homes and residential buildings, as we see here, but it will also be used for theaters, hotels, office lobbies, cruise ship decor. It becomes a very, very common style. Now, inside, we'll see it used in a lot of theaters. And again, this is going to give us that streamlined appeal, that sense of movement. Round walls or round openings are going to be very common as well, as we see here around the stage. That's mimicking the bulkhead in an aircraft, because aircraft are most efficient if they're round in cross-section, and so they're mimicking that here. Also, if you look at the curtain, it has that sense of dynamicism, of movement, and that sense of being inspired by aviation, maybe by the dials in the cockpit, maybe by the aircraft itself. But you'll notice it doesn't actually depict any aircraft. These are all related to the arts. Here we see a violin and a keyboard and what appears to be maybe a radio antenna. But it's giving that impression of something technologically advanced, something streamlined, something quick. We're going to see that as well in train stations. Again, the same sort of sense of hope in technology. People really putting their hope in technology to make their lives better, to save them time, to save them energy, to do the things that we don't want to do. And that really speaks to us in these public buildings. So where does this break down? Actually, I want to break down a couple of elements of the style before I get to comparing it to Art Deco. First, we will see a lot of nautical themes, as I've talked about. In fact, you'll see buildings such as this, where it's actually built in the form of a cruise ship. Cruises are becoming very popular in the interwar years. They're fairly inexpensive as a way to travel. You just have to get to the port and then head out. We're going to see homes that are going to mimic a lot of these ideas, a lot of horizontals, a lot of nautical themes. Here, instead of porthole windows, we have this railing that mimics the deck on a cruise ship. We have this massive upright flag post, which is mimicking the mast of a ship. So again, using a lot of those ideas. And oftentimes we will have this large open patio or multiple large open patios, as we see here, which are going to be key to the form, because very similar to Dish Steel or Arts and Crafts or Bauhaus, they're trying to bring the outdoors in. They're trying to mix the two. So you see a lot of glass and a lot of outdoor space that is part of the house. Interiors are going to be rather unique. We see again a lot of those round forms. In fact, this door is rather unique in this Art Moderne house because it actually goes up as opposed to sliding to the side. This very basic shift gives us a sense of modernity, this sense of moving through doors that open automatically, even though they don't actually. And here we see the use of rectilinear design, very Art Deco design here. So we see that use of contrasting line on the wall. Everything is rectilinear or rectangular in form, with that occasional break of the curved line on the tub or on the seat next to the tub, made of this bent steel structure, which is so common to the period. In terms of furniture, what you're going to see is something called the Waterfall style. And typical of this style, usually we refer to this as Art Deco in the antique market, but it is in fact Art Moderne. And it has this streamlined effect as if the furniture itself is designed to travel through space. The furniture is generally veneered. It's going to be a symmetrical veneer down the center. It gives a sense of motion and dynamicism, to use more artistically inclined terms. The fronts are usually fairly clean and plain. The poles or fixtures are going to be very, very horizontal. In fact, we see a lot of horizontal line in all of these pieces. And these really do stand out, primarily for the curve that will be the same off the sides as well as off the front. And the term waterfall comes from the fact that that veneer follows that curve down the line. Now, these pieces were mass manufactured. They were actually fairly inexpensively manufactured pieces, very against the arts and crafts sort of side that comes into Bauhaus and Art Deco and all of that. They're maintaining the designs, but we're moving more and more towards cheaper, more mass manufactured pieces. In the US, waterfall is going to be most common in that World War II period. Really, we tend to associate it with the 1940s. Now, I want to look at the difference between Art Moderne, and Art Deco. The easiest way to think of it is sleek versus chic. Art Moderne tends to have horizontal design, focusing on movement and sleekness, streamline. Think of the 1950s chrome diner that might have been on a main street at one point. Versus Art Deco, which emphasizes verticality, it's going to be much more stylized, and we tend to see a lot of geometric ornamentation. So what we have are two posters here for World's Fairs. This one, 1933, this is Art Deco. Just looking at the color scheme, it screams Art Deco, whereas when we move into Art Moderne, you're going to see a lot more black and white. It's just the style of the time. You're going to see things that focus on streamlining and things that focus on technology. And you notice the horizontal is far stronger, although we do have this vertical element. The horizontal is far stronger. And here's our round element, so common to Art Moderne, in the form of the moon.